Let's talk about artifacts, and this time it's about the chaotic infamy set. The two-piece effect, every time the user uses a skill, they gain infamy. It stacks up to 20 times and giving you a total of 30% basic skill damage and 20% increased damage taken. So it's a high risk, high reward. The 4-piece effect, it upgrades the infamy into enhanced infamy. Now for full stack, the user gets a max of 50% basic skill damage and still 20% increased damage taken. Plus a new passive where you get 5% MP refund every 30 seconds when you use a basic skill. The 8-piece effect further upgrades the enhanced infamy into chaotic infamy. Now the user can get a max of 100% basic skill damage, still 5% MP refund on basic skill, and the 20% increased damage debuff is removed. You heard that right, no more risk, all reward in 8-piece effect. Additionally, in team fight mode where you get to use 3 hunters and Sangjinu on the field, like on the Power of Destruction, the user will get another 40% overall damage. So, should you use the 2-piece? Definitely not. The buff is too low and the debuff is insane. How about the 4-piece? Usable, you get 2 buffs and it's worth the risk for the debuff. 8-piece? Definitely. Although it might take time to complete the set, I guarantee you it's worth it. So who can potentially use this set? Any DPS that relies on their basic skills like Amamiya Mirei, Kawata Kanai, and Tama Sanjay. Choi Jong-in and Chehei-in can even go with the set. Make sure to follow or subscribe since I'll be making more like this. Let's talk about artifacts, and this time, it's about the Chaotic Desire set. The 2-piece effect, every time the user's break damage hit, they gain a stack of Desire. It stacks up to 20 times, giving the user a total of 10% elemental damage permanently. The 4-piece effect, it evolves the Desire into Enhanced Desire. Bringing a more powerful buff, now it can provide a maximum of 20% elemental damage to the whole team instead of just the user, and a 30% break skill damage for the user. The 8-piece effect, it further evolves Enhanced Desire into Chaotic Desire. At max stack, this can provide a 40% elemental damage to the whole team, plus 50% break skill damage for the user, and an additional 30% break effectiveness when attacking enemies with elemental weakness. So, should you use the 2-piece set? No, because it is weak. How about the 4-piece set? Yes, because it has a good team buff and a user break boost. Definitely worth it. And for the 8-piece, absolutely a god set for your break type hunters. It provides massive buff which you can't ignore. And lastly, who can use this set? Any breakers can utilize this actually, but my top picks are Goto Ryuji, Gogan Hee, and Soren. Make sure to follow or subscribe since I'll be making more like this. Let's talk about artifacts. And this time, it's about the Chaotic Wish set. The 2-piece effect, when the user casts their ultimate skill, the whole team gets a stack of Wish, where it increases the team's attack by 8% for 10 seconds. The 4-piece effect, it evolves Wish into Enhanced Wish, which triggers when the user casts their support and ultimate skill, and this increases the team's attack and HP by 10%, plus a max of 2% HP healing. And the 8-piece effect, it further evolves into Chaotic Wish. This can be triggered by using support or ultimate skill and core attack. This can increase the team's attack, HP, and defense by a whopping 15% and a max of 4% HP healing. However, it increases the user's MP consumption by 20%, but decreases their basic skill cooldown by 10%, which is still a nice trade-off honestly. So moving on to the set equips, 2-piece is definitely a no, Wish being triggered by ult is too long to wait. 4-piece is usable, given you're mainly buffing hunters that scales with attack and HP, although the trigger is still long since support skill can only be used when playing Sangjinu. 8-piece is recommended for every support available. The Chaotic Wish passive is easy to trigger since it can now be activated with core attack. Plus, it buffs every stats, which means everyone can benefit from it. And lastly, who can use this set? Every support can use this, but here's my top priority. Hansami, Ayla Wright, and Gina. Make sure to follow or subscribe since I'll be making more like this. Let's talk about artifacts. and this time it's about the Burning Curse set. The 2-piece effect, the user gets the Curse effect, which increases the damage dealt by 10% and another 10% after 100 seconds. But the downside is you take 20% more damage. The 4-piece effect upgrades Curse into Enhanced Curse. Now you get a 20% damage dealt and still another 10% after 100 seconds, plus 20% damage taken debuff, and a new buff called Rescue, in which you recover 25% of your HP if you go below the threshold. The 8-piece effect turns your buff into Burning Curse. You get a base of 30% damage dealt and another 20% after 100 seconds. The rescue buff can still be triggered here. So, for the set equips, don't ever go with 2-piece set. 4-piece is usable and works well with the other sets. 8-piece is also great and it will surely boost your total power, but I suggest sticking with 4-piece and experiment with the other sets. And for the hunters I recommend for this are Sangjinu, Mirei, Kanai. Basically any main damage dealers can go with this, because its buff is not tied to any specific stats. Make sure to follow or subscribe since I'll be making more like this. Let's talk about artifacts. And this time, it's about the Burning Greed set. The 2-piece effect, every time the user's breaking skill hit, they gain a stack of greed, which stacks up to 10 times. This buff increases the user's critical hit rate by 1%, which in full stack gives a 10% crit rate. The 4-piece effect, once greed reaches 10 stacks, it evolves into Enhanced Greed, giving the whole team a total of 10% crit rate and 15% critical hit damage. The 8-piece effect, it further evolves the buff into Burning Greed, giving the whole team a massive 15% crit rate and 30% crit damage. Additionally, the user also gains a 30% break effectiveness when hitting elemental weak enemies. Alright, moving on to the set equips. 2-piece is not recommended since it buffs only the user. 4-piece is usable and can be combined with other sets. And 8-piece is your ultimate goal for your supportive breakers since it can provide a massive crit buff and its additional break effect makes them break enemies faster. So, who can use this set? Any hunters who have breaking skill can take advantage of this, but here's my recommended. Goto Ryuji, Gogan He, and Asel. Make sure to follow or subscribe since I'll be making more like this. Let's talk about artifacts. And this time, it's about the Burning Blessing set. The 2-piece effect, when the user tags out, the whole team gets a plus 8% damage increase for 10 seconds. The 4-piece effect upgrades the blessing into Enhanced Blessing. It can now be triggered by tagging out and using a support skill, giving the whole team plus 10% damage increase for 10 seconds. Additionally, it can also heal for a total of 2% HP. And the 8-piece effect further upgrades it to Burning Blessing. This triggers when tagging out using a support skill or ultimate skill. And this gives a very nice plus 20% damage increase for 20 seconds. And a total heal of 4% HP. Alright, now moving on to the set equips. 2-piece is weak, so avoid using it. 4-piece is usable for both Hunters and Sangjinu. And 8-piece is the best set you could give to your supports as they'll have better chance of activating it and the duration is doubled. So, who can use this set? All support hunters can definitely use this, but here's who I recommend. Hansemi, Ayla Wright, and Shimizu Akari. Make sure to follow or subscribe since I'll be making more like this.